Yeah. Well, that's why I said it's so juicy. I had to go back and. Okay.
Eruption and Bhagavad.
It's, yeah.
Working for you.
Yeah, but it, what part is that? Part four?
We went part 2.
Part
There
2,
you go.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Part 2.
Do you need a book stand? No, I'm just getting organized here. Nobody's online, so.
So
So far, yeah. So Thursday, I don't know what that means to everybody, but I've been advertising that you're gonna have class. So maybe while they're not here. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Rayanam Namaskricha Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devam Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, under Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Master Prayashu Bhadrashu Nicham Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavarutamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed in loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. You know, that's the chant that Dhruva did his austerity with, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yeah. That, you know, it wasn't the Maha Mantra, right? It was just Om Namo. Yeah, it was very touching to remember that right when I was singing it this morning. I forgot.
completely appropriate for this reading.
Yeah.
That's the first line of Bhagavatam.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a little verse or two about it and what it meant back a few chapters. So if you have your Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 12, we're going to be reading 10 verses together today. It's starting with verse 43, and then 53 is the last verse in this chapter before. And we're 2 chapters ahead in class in the mornings, but I wasn't planning to go backwards, but when I was reading yesterday or getting the books out and set myself up to prepare, I remembered this and I thought, well, I'm just going to go back and read that one more time for myself. And it was just so powerful that I think you guys should hear it. and I'm sure Dear Govinda's heard it before, but we didn't read it in class because you know how I keep moving forward. I read it and got the power from it and made some notes and meditated on it, but I didn't share it with you guys. So we're going back because I think it's something we need to share, because I think sometimes when I'm hard on myself, at least about my practice or my sincerity or whatever, my focus, I forget all the things that I do in devotional service. That's kind of my thing. Which is great for material life. You can just keep pushing and grinding. But in spiritual life, I could slow down and just absorb what I'm reading and sit with it. So that's what I did. So on this, on text 43, I'll read 43 and then we're just going to go around and there's 10 verses. So we'll each have 2 verses. And then I also wanted to share one verse from Bhagavad Gita that came up this morning in my chanting, because it's about carrying what we lack, and I'm lacking. Today I feel a little not as enthusiastic, which could be a good thing because my enthusiasm can get the best of me. But I was wondering like what's going on with my energy, and as I was chanting, and I thought of this verse. Protects what we have. Krishna protects what we have and he carries what we lack. I know I learned this verse years ago and I didn't remember where it was or the Sanskrit, but I remembered that line. And I was thinking about what I'm lacking this morning, and I was often thinking about what I'm lacking. And so I'm focusing now, I'm going to turn it around and focus on what I have that Krishna's protecting. And then I began to think about all the things that I think I lack that I really don't lack. And then how the things that I am strong in, someone else carries the stuff I'm not strong in. Anasuya, I'm not strong in taxes and house maintenance and real estate stuff and insurance and trees getting trimmed. That's not my strength, but it's hers. So Krishna's provided me a place to focus on my strengths, which is in the kitchen, setting up a beautiful home for a guest to feel comfortable in, and hosting that immense variety of travelers and seekers and non-seekers who wander into Prabhupada's house not by chance. And I was discussing this yesterday with someone, maybe it was the morning program with Kelly, maybe. Just that vast variety of people that show up. And sometimes, like tomorrow, there'll be 12 or so of them showing up all at one time from different places. I don't know their background. Some of them have been there before, some of them haven't. And they all need to be met in different ways, which makes it super challenging. But that's one of my strengths. I like variety, and I'm spontaneous and I'm creative. So I've got the art table set up. I have things out ready, and I'm preparing prasadam. And I will trust Krishna to give me what I lack, because Anna Sue's already given me the platform for it. So there's zero chance of failure, because seeds are going to get planted, and that's if I don't focus on the fructification of those seeds, then I'm good. But I tend to focus on what's lacking. So that verse was really powerful for this morning, and relating to Dhruva's story. Y'all have been with me through Dhruva's story, and I know I'm really into it. Maybe you're hit or miss here and there, but he's already gone back to Godhead. We had the class where the flowers and showers came out of the sky, and everybody's cheering, and there he goes into the airplane the size of the house. Now we're being Vidura, Maitreya and Vidura are discussing why we should know about this. And why should we? And so that's part of my class today. And so all of a sudden we're reading about airplanes and flowers, and then it goes to, oh, well, here's the reason. And it's about Dhruva's character, his reputation, his character. And I was looking at the Charitamrita this morning, and Charitam is high character, right? It's about the character of. So I was like, oh, that's what we're reading about Chaitanya's character. And so these 10 verses say, well, it's a natural desire to want to read about someone's high standards, high character. I mean, we don't write biographies and publish magazines on the nobodies of the world unless they do something extraordinary. But we like that as a human. It's natural in us as humans, because of our soul relationship to Krishna. We want to hear about these extraordinary people, personalities. So Dhruva apparently satisfies all those needs. It fulfills that complete desire, versus Sports Illustrated or Vogue or whatever you're going to get our high from. Or look at all the biographies. I was just thinking yesterday, and I just Googled for curiosity, like, what are the top selling biographies, and who are they about? It's Michelle Obama, it's Kenny Chesney, it's Reese Witherspoon. It's strange actors and things that really have no impact on. Maybe they've got some things that might, speak to someone in a chapter or two, but every bit of this is potent. And so I can definitely feel in my own practice that when I got to the Dhruva Maharaj pastime, my ante was upped in my commitment to Bhagavatam, and I've just enjoyed it so much more. And it's become an integral part of my exciting daily reading, is to go to it and see what's happening next. And I love that I don't really know what's happening next, because it makes it, really thrilling. So all along I've been doing that, not knowing that I was going to get told, amen, good girl, this is what we're supposed to do. You could hear this, you could read this and hear it over and over and over, and it will empower you. And there's a reason for it. So I was like, well, okay, no wonder it felt so good. So I wanted to share that with you guys so you can take that joy home and know that Dhruva, anytime we can go to these pastimes, Leelas of Dhruva Maharaj, and get some nectar. You go anywhere. In fact, it says in one of these verses, you can read any line, any sentence, any word of Srimad Bhagavatam. The potency is so powerful. It's undeniable. It's not up for discussion. All the sages of the universe of all times have said, this is it. This is the ripened fruit. And I was thinking about that tree out there. When I was chanting, I could see the persimmon tree, which now has nothing on it. It looks like a dead tree. And we know just weeks ago, there was the ripened fruit, the most nectarian fruit that I know about. I've been coming here for almost a decade and never even seen that tree. So this year I said, is that a persimmon tree? David said, yes. And I picked a few, and I must have eaten 2 or 3 dozen of those beautiful fruits. I made concoctions at home with them, gave them to neighbors. We gave them away at your program, and it just kept producing this nectar. And that sweetness versus when you pull it off the tree versus what happens when it ripens, it becomes this like pure jelly of sweet honey. So that's what this is being likened to. It's that the purest, most sweetest fruit. And so why not? I mean, there's nothing else we should read, right? We can go to the church and read, we can go to Bhagavad Gita or all these bona fide books here, but for us to read through here together, it also mentions here that we need an audience, a willing, excited audience that wants to embrace, because we go out and we teach the common man, the average person that comes to Prabhupada House that's not ready. Somebody came over yesterday, 2 people knocked on my door, and I said, oh boy. 2 neighbors came over, and I said, well, come in, I'm preparing. I have my mess made table. And I said, do you mind if I share what I'm going to lead class in tomorrow? And what can they say? What can they say? I wish that they would say, I would like to have a copy of that book. And I wish that they would say, I'm coming back tomorrow again to hear this. But I don't know what's going on in their heart, but I try. I do my best. Yeah, it's nice to have, and it's nice when Dhruva's and all my note cards are spread out. They're here somebody, and someone comes over, because there's no denying that I'm in the middle of something. One was a guy selling insurance, and he said, I said, well, I'm in the middle of something, but come on in. And I said, can you come back next week? He doesn't know what he's in for. So we're going to read these 10 together. We're going to read and then see what happens for you. We'll have a discussion. I've got some notes, but today I kind of wanted to see if it's as empowering for you as it was for me. I'm going to read the Sanskrit and the translation and the purport. And then when you get to your turn, if you need to skip the Sanskrit or whatever works for you, we'll read these 10 verses and then have our class today. So that was your warm-up warning. There's some tenderness here and some affirmation. It felt like affirmation to me. Text 43, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Yashatra Bandur Bhuvi Tasha Druridam Anvarukshera Pivarsha Pugai Sadpancha Varsho Yad Aho Bir Alpai Prasadya Vaikuntam Avapatat Param. Translation. Dhruva Maharaj attained an exalted position, that's Adirudam, at the age of only 5 or 6 years old. After undergoing austerity for 6 months. Alas, a great Kshatriya cannot achieve such a position even after undergoing austerity for many, many years. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj is described here as Kshatriya Bandhu, which indicates that he was not fully trained as a Kshatriya because he was only 5 years old. He was not a mature Kshatriya. Kshatriya or Brahmana has to take training. A boy born in a family of Brahmanas is not immediately a Brahmana, but he has to take up the training and the purificatory process. The great sage Narada Muni was very proud of having a devotee disciple like Dhruva Maharaj. He had many other disciples, but he was very pleased with Dhruva Maharaj because in one lifetime, you guys hear that? One lifetime, by dint of severe penances and austerities, he achieved Vaikuntha, which was never achieved by any other king's son or Rajarishi throughout the whole universe. There's an instance of the great King Bharat Maharaj, who was also a great devotee, but he attained Vaikuntha Loka in 3 lives. In the first life, although he executed austerities in the forest, he became a victim of too much affection for a small deer. And in his next life, he had to take birth as a deer. Although he had a deer's body, he remembered his spiritual position, but he still had to wait until his next life for perfection. In the next life, he took birth as Jadbarat. Of course, in that life, he was completely free from all material entanglement, and he attained perfection and was elevated to Vaikuntha Loka. The lesson from the life of Dhruva Maharaj is that if one likes, one can attain Vaikuntha in one life. I'll read that again. The lesson from the life of Dhruva Maharaj is that if one likes, one can attain Vaikuntha Loka in one life without waiting for many other lives. I just hear so often people say, well, not in this lifetime, maybe in my next life. You know, that's a big conversation amongst devotees. My Guru Maharaj, Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada used to say that every one of his disciples could attain Vaikuntha Loka in this life without waiting for another life to execute devotional service. One simply has to become as serious and sincere as Dhruva Maharaj. Then it's quite possible to attain Vaikuntha Loka and go back home, back to Godhead in one life. Who would like to read next? Honestly, you want to?
Oh, I'll try. Okay. Atreya uvacha etate bihitam sarvam yat vistoham iham tvaya druvayas yodamam yasyas yasas charitam samatam satam.
There's that word charitam again.
Yes. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, whatever you have asked from me about the great reputation and character of Dhruva Maharaj, I have explained to you in all detail. Great saintly persons and devotees very much like to hear about Dhruva Maharaj. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam means everything in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether we hear the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Lord or we hear about the character, reputation, and activities of his devotees. They are all one and the same. Neophyte devotees simply try to understand the pastimes of the Lord and are not very interested in hearing about the activities of his devotees. But such discrimination should not be indulged in by any real devotee. Sometimes less intelligent men try to hear about the rasa dance of Krishna and do not take care to hear about other portions of Srimad Bhagavatam, which they completely avoid. There are professional Bhagavat reciters who abruptly go to the Rasa Lila chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam as if other portions of Srimad Bhagavatam were useless. This kind of discrimination and abrupt adoption of the Rasa Lila pastimes of the Lord is not approved by the Acharyas. A sincere devotee should read every chapter and every word of Srimad Bhagavatam. But the beginning verses describe that it is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literature. Devotees should not try to avoid even a word of Srimad Bhagavatam. The great sage Maitreya therefore affirmed herein that the Bhagavatam is samatatam satam, approved by great devotees.
Dayam yasa yasasyam ayusham punyam vasti ayanam mahat shvaryam dhruvyam samanasham prayasham akamarsanam. Translation. By hearing the narration of Dhruva Maharaj, one can fulfill desires for wealth, reputation, and increased duration of life. It is so auspicious that one can even go to a heavenly planet or attain Dhruva-loka, which was achieved by Dhruva Maharaj, just by hearing about him. The demigods also become pleased because this narration is so glorious and is so powerful that it can counteract all the results of one's sinful actions. Purport. There are different types of men in this world, not all of them pure devotees. Some are karmis, desiring to acquire vast wealth. There are also persons who are only after reputation. Some desire to be elevated to the heavenly planets or to go to Dhruva-loka, and others want to please the demigods to get material profits. Herein, it is recommended by Maitreya that every one of them can hear the narration of Dhruva Maharaj and thus get their desired goal. It is recommended that the devotees, Akama, the Karmis, Sarvakama, and the Yanis who desire to be liberated, Mokshakama, should all worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead to acquire their desired goals of life. Similarly, if anyone hears about the activities of the Lord's devotee, he can achieve the same result. There is no difference between the activities and character of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and those of his pure devotees.
Every meeting has joined us. Hare Krishna, everyone. We're reading in a circle, and it's dear Govinda's going to read next. We're reading from Canto 4, Chapter 12, text 43 through 52. Thank you.
Very nice. This is text 46, chapter 12, canto 4. Shruti Naita Shradaya Ikshnam Achuta Priyacheshtitam Bhavet Bhaktir Bhagavati Yasya Kleshasangshaya. Translation. Anyone who hears the narration of Dhruva Maharaj and who repeatedly tries with faith and devotion to understand his pure character attains the pure devotional platform and executes pure devotional service. By such activities, one can diminish the threefold miserable conditions of material life. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here the word Achyuta Priya is very significant. Dhruva Maharaj's character and reputation are great because he is very dear to Achyuta, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Lord are pleasing to hearing about his devotees, who are very dear to the Supreme Person, is also pleasing and potent. If one simply reads over and over again about Dhruva Maharaj by hearing and reading this chapter, one can attain the highest perfection of life in any way he desires. Most importantly, he gets the chance to become a great devotee. To become a great devotee means to finish all miserable conditions of materialistic life.
Mahadvam ichatam tirtam shrotu shila dayo guna yatra tejas tad ichunam mano yatra manashminam. Text 47. Translation. Anyone who hears this narration of Dhruva Maharaj acquires exalted qualities like him. For anyone who desires greatness, prowess, or influence, here's the process to acquire them. And for thoughtful men who want adoration, here's the proper means. Purport. In the material world, everyone is after profit, respectability, and reputation. Everyone wants the supreme exalted position, and everyone wants to hear about the great qualities of exalted persons. All ambitions which are desirable for great persons can be fulfilled simply by reading and understanding the narration of Dhruva Maharaj's activities.
All right, text 40. Rayata Kriyat Ratam Samadaya Di Janmanam Sayam Chapunya Slokasya Druvayasa Taritam Mahat. Translation. The great sage Maitreya recommended one should chant of the character and activities of Dhruva Maharaj both in the morning and in the evening, with great attention and care in the society of brahmanas or other twice-born persons. Purport. It is said that only in the association of devotees can one understand the importance of the character and pastimes of the Supreme Person of Godhead or his devotees. In this verse, it is especially recommended that Dhruva Maharaj's character be discussed in the society of the twice-born, which refers to the qualified brahmanas, shastriyas, and vaishyas. One should especially seek the society of brahmanas who are elevated to the position of Vaishnavas. Thus, discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes the character and pastimes of devotees and the Lord, is very quickly effective. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been organized for this purpose. In every center of this society, not only in the morning, evening, or noon, but practically 24 hours a day, there is continuous devotional service going on. Anyone who comes in contact with the society automatically becomes a devotee. We have actual experience that many karmis and others come to the society and find a very pleasing and peaceful atmosphere in the temples of Ishkan. In this verse of the word, Dvijanmanam means of the twice born. Anyone can join the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and be initiated to become twice born, as recommended by Sanatana Goswami. By the process of initiation and authorized training, any man can become twice born. The first birth is made possible by the parents, and the second birth is made possible by the spiritual father and Vedic knowledge. Unless one is twice born, one cannot understand the transcendental characteristics of the Lord and his devotees. Study of the Vedas is therefore forbidden by Sudras. Simply by academic qualifications, a Sudra cannot understand the transcendental science. At the present moment, throughout the entire world, the educational system is geared to produce Sudras. A big technologist is no more than a big Sudra. Kala Sudra Sambhava. In the age of Kali, everyone is a Sudra. Because the whole population of the world consists only of Sudras, there is a decline of spiritual knowledge and people are unhappy. The Krishna consciousness movement has been started especially to create qualified brahmanas to broadcast spiritual knowledge all over the world, for thus people may become very happy. This sounds like your a PhD program. there's the secret right here contained in this Vedic knowledge.
Bring some Vedic wisdom into academia there.
Yes, yes. So I don't experience you as a Sudra.
That's debatable.
Continue. Next 49 and 50. Purna Masyam Sinivayam Vadasyam Sharvani Shra Dina Shai Yat Ipate Sankrame Rakintin Piva Ravayik Radadhan Namam Trita Pada Pada Shraya Nicham Statrat Manam Santushti Iti Shit Yati. Translation. Persons who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord should recite this narration of Dhruva Maharaj without taking remuneration. Specifically, recitation is recommended on the full moon or dark moon sky on the day after Ekadashi, on the appearance of the Shvarna star at the end of a particular tithi, or the occasion of Yat Ipata at the end of the month or on Sunday. Such recitation should of course be performed before a favorable audience. When recitation is performed this way without professional motive, the reciter and audience become perfect. Purport. Professional reciters may ask money to extinguish the blazing fire within their bellies, but they cannot make any spiritual improvement or become perfect.
People call that's humor there.
It is therefore strictly forbidden to recite the Srimad Bhagavatam as a profession to earn a livelihood. Only one who is completely surrendered at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, depending fully on him for personal maintenance or even for maintenance of his family, can attain perfection by recitation of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narrations of the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. The process can be summarized as follows. The audience must be faithfully receptive to the Bhagavata message, and the reciter should completely depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavata recitation must not be a business. If done in the right way, not only does the reciter achieve perfect satisfaction, but the Lord also is very satisfied with the reciter and the audience, and thus both are liberated from material bondage simply by the process of hearing.
Beautiful.
Thanks. 51. Gyanam agyata tatvaya yoda yatsapati vitam kripalordina natasya devastasya nukrinate. Translation. The narration of Dhruva Maharaj's sublime knowledge for the attainment of immortality. Persons unaware of the absolute truth can be led to the path of truth. Those who out of transcendental kindness take on the responsibility of becoming master protectors of the poor living entities automatically gain the interest and blessings of the demigods. Purport by Sri Prabhupada. Gyanam Agyata means knowledge which is unknown almost throughout the entire world. No one knows actually what is the absolute truth. Materialists are very proud of their advancement in education and philosophical speculation and in scientific knowledge, but no one actually knows what the absolute truth is. The great sage Maitreya therefore recommends that to enlighten people about the absolute truth, tattva, devotees should preach the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the entire world. Srila Vyasadeva especially compiled this great literature of scientific knowledge because people are completely unaware of the absolute truth. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, it is said that Vyasadeva, the learned sage, compiled this great Bhagavad Purana just to stop the ignorance of the mass of people. Because people do not know the absolute truth, the Srimad Bhagavatam was specifically compiled by Vyasadeva under the instruction of Narada. Generally, even though people are interested in understanding the truth, they take to speculation and reach at most the conception of impersonal Brahman. But very few men actually know personality of Godhead. Recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam is specifically meant to enlighten people about the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead. Although there is no fundamental difference between impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the Supreme Person, factual immortality cannot be obtained unless and until one attains the stage of associating with the Supreme Person. Devotional service, which leads to the association of the Supreme Lord, is actual immortality. Pure devotees, out of compassion for the fallen souls, are kripa, very kind to people in general. They distribute this Bhagavat knowledge all over the world. A kind-hearted devotee is called Dinanath, protector of the poor, ignorant mass of people. Lord Krishna is also known as Dinanath or Dinabandhu, the master or actual friend of the poor living entities, and his pure devotee also takes the same position of Dinanath. The Dinanaths, or devotees of Lord Krishna who preach the path of devotional service, become the favorites of the demigods. Generally, people are interested in worshiping the demigods, especially Lord Shiva, in order to obtain material benefits. But a pure devotee who engages in preaching the principles of devotional service, as prescribed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, does not need to separately worship the demigods. The demigods are automatically pleased with him and offer all the blessings within their capacity. As by watering the root of a tree, the leaves and branches are automatically watered, so by executing pure devotional service to the Lord, the branches, twigs, and leaves of the Lord, known as demigods, are automatically pleased with the devotee, and they offer all benedictions.
Krishna. This is the last verse we're going to read. It's text 52. Idamaya tebi hitam kurubaha. Rubasha vikyata vishuddha karmana. Hidvarbaka krida nakani matur. Riham cha vishnum sharanam yoja gama. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The transcendental activities of Dhruva Maharaj are well known all over the world, and they are very pure. In childhood, Dhruva Maharaj rejected all kinds of toys and playthings, left the protection of his mother, and seriously took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. My dear Vidura, I therefore conclude this narration, for I have described to you in detail, in all its details, purport. It is said by Chanakya Pandit that life is certainly short for everyone, but if one acts properly, his reputation will remain for a generation. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna is everlasting famous, so the reputation of Lord Krishna's devotee is also everlasting. Therefore, in describing Dhruva Maharaj's activities, two specific words have been used. Vikyata, very famous, and Vishuddha, transcendental. Dhruva Maharaj leaving home at a tender age and taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the forest is a unique example in this world. Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namah. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Shatarine. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Well, I'm excited to hear anything you guys want to share, interrupt me with, but I think I made more notes and marks and underlines and underscores in these 10 verses than I have in all 1 through 4. And at the same time, I'm going 1 through 4. There's more. There's got to be more. But to not get too anxious about what I haven't done like I do, I'm going to come back to these 10 verses and say, yes, if I like, anybody likes, Prabhupada says it lightly like that. If you like, you can start now, and it can happen in a minute. It just takes surrender, sincere surrender. And that's so elusive to me, to most of us. And if we can wait, we'll just try it again and again. And we've done that. And Dhruva was only 5 or 6. And so he, Prabhupada's, pointing out that he didn't even have training as a Kshatriya. And it wasn't from his birth. He's from an elevated birth line. And as we go on in the next 2 chapters we're reading in the morning, everything coming down from Dhruva's birth line, because we're speaking of his great grandson, King Bena, who had some issues. And so the bloodline is being messed up. And so we're it's all taken care of by the sages in the most unique way. I love reading about it, but I'm looking at okay, so we don't, none of us have that kind of bloodline, but it doesn't matter. And Prabhupada says that a lot in a lot of his texts and purports, that we don't have to be born into it. We don't have to have, we might get that next time if we are good devotees in this lifetime, or focused devotees. We might get born in a spiritual family or a family with financial success, so that we can, and I was born in a family that was financially wealthy, but not so much spiritually wealthy. But there was a grandmother, so there was a little hope, a little thread. It was at least introduced to me, but it wasn't modeled in my home. So when Dhruva had, he had the models. And it mentions also that he had a spiritual master that he actually followed his directions. And so that's part of the key point here too, is it's not just theoretical books that sound good for our next lifetime. It's up for us to take on now, right now, start right away. And that's hard. So when this feels too hard, I go back to Bhagavad Gita, which feels less hard, less strenuous on my mind and my practice. And so that happened this morning. I was feeling something like, I don't know if I'm prepared to talk about something so transcendental. I just didn't feel prepared, and I try not to get in my head. I read and I practice. I made some notes and I put it down. I can't, because otherwise I'll pace all night and worry about things, and that's not going to help things. So I was just praying while I was doing japa of, I trust Krishna to guide me in my words. I trust Prabhupada. I did ask this morning when I was praying at home that Prabhupada, speak through me and give me something to say that could have some kind of positive effect on all of us. And if he likes, if I could just be the instrument between the Srimad Bhagavatam, this ripened fruit, and what's going on here and out into the internet world, and me and others who may listen, but to carry me because I'm lacking the sincerity, I'm lacking a lot of stuff. And so without focusing on that, let me just read it again. And it says right here, that's what's so lovely is the first time I read it again, and then I read it again yesterday, and then we read it again this morning. And it's so ever fresh that there's new things that I could make a dozen more cards. And I love that feeling because I don't ever get that feeling when I'm reading. I don't read too much other stuff, but this is kind of my main read here. And yet it's so rich that I experienced wanting to stop and look up words and meditate and go read some other things and sit with it and meditate on it and kind of see what's coming up and watch, like I did this morning, watching out the window while I was jumping. I see the tree with beautiful ripened fruit on it. And I'm God, the ripened fruit here, literally and figuratively, and what's the word? What's literature? Literature and literal and figurative. All here going, we're right here. We're right here in front of you, got your hands on it, and you actually enjoy and embrace it. And dear Govinda's giving me this platform to practice putting it in some kind of real life format to that definitely enriches my practice. It gives me, when I have somebody knock at the door, I'm ready because I was reading this. I just finished with perfect timing. I just finished the last of the 10 when I decided I was just going back to kind of get my system riled up for the verses that we're reading in chapter 15. And then I thought, well, I'm attracted to that, so I'm just going to sit with it for a minute. And then when someone came and I got to talk about it, it felt like this is where I want to be, because I don't know. I remember reading the first time that I thought, wow, I just stumbled on this. Like nobody told me about. I mean, I got a Bhagavatam set in 2017 from Melanie, and then Mother Janava. I got another set from her, so I had 2 sets hanging around my life for a few years. And I occasionally opened them and read some random stuff. And if I came to class, I read with Dear Govinda, or if I was online, I read. But I wasn't reading steadily. And moving to Prabhupada House allowed me to start reading steadily because I had some space and I wasn't working crazy hours anymore. But but I didn't know that I was going to get to the point where I would read this and it would say, you can read this over and over again. Here's the reason you're reading it. And it's all common sense stuff, but it just hadn't sunk into me until I read these 10 verses. And I thought, this is how I feel. Like I was always a nonfiction reader when I used to read. I didn't read, I never read a novel or some kind of, I always thought, what do I care about what somebody made up about some so-and-so? But I liked reading biographies. I read a lot of biographies. So it all just made sense to me. Well, like these biographies matter. This is a Leela of someone who actually matters. So I guess it put me in a gear of groundedness and a gear of encouragement and purpose. And I felt like without me knowing it, without somebody holding my hand there, I came to these 10 verses and felt that I was on the right track. I may be all over the track and some days slower than others, but I was on a track that I was meant to be on. And I was confirmed that with Srila Prabhupada. So the favorable audience is here today, right? We're all twice born, almost, all of us, same to me. And I don't have a professional motive or any kind of financial motive. I just want to be a better devotee. I want to understand. I want to learn to love Krishna. I want to see my devotional path expand and not stay stagnant. So I'm doing the things that requires, and it works, right? We always hear about it does work. So my faith is there. I'm receptive, you're receptive, your faith is there. So this is the kind of audience that Prabhupada says create that. And these purports are saying that go out there. And not everybody's going to be faithful or responsive, but I can't see myself doing any, Prabhupada alludes to that so often, professional recitation for the wrong motives, but I don't have that, thank God. So depending on God, like I'm the reciter today and you're the reciter, and we're depending on God, on Krishna, to give us whatever we need from these 10 purports, 10 verses. And it's a guarantee, there's a satisfaction guarantee comes with it.
Mhm.
Just like it does with the washer machine or whatever else. Although these days, nothing really comes with that anymore. It used to be, you could take it back and now they don't care anymore. It's probably not gonna last very long either. You used to have a washer and dryer and it'd last a lifetime of an adult family. For marriage, they get a washer and dryer when they get married and it'd still be there when the kids are gone to, grandkids are coming. And now it's like, you're lucky if you get a few years off a brand new one and it costs a lot of money. So there's no satisfaction guarantee anymore. But here there is. Get satisfaction guarantee. So Dhruva, to talk about Dhruva in association seems to be important here. So, my mind goes to, because I'm a creative person, is all the things we could do with that information. You know, I'm like we're doing right now, and I'm like, well, we could read the whole pastime of Dhruva on a Sunday and the right moon and all that. We could get all the benefit. I mean, we could create that, right? I could create that. So that's exciting because it tells you exactly how to do it. Although we're not following all that today. We could. There's specific instructions on how to do that, on how to get the most nectar out of this these 10 this the whole Dhruva pastime. I'm not sure how many chapters and verses this, but it could be set up in a course or a gathering or an entire weekend or something like that. Yeah. So that's on my radar.
Oh, well, of course, about the Dhruva Maharaj pastimes in Bhagavatam. Of course, a series of classes, discussions.
Yeah.
Wonderful transcendental inspiration there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, we would need you there.
Starting with the Jayanti, and then we can go into the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah, no, that would be lovely.
Yeah.
So to understand it, we have to discuss it, and discussion requires more than just one person, right? So it requires some solid committed attendance.
Yeah.
And that's the part I struggle with out there. So I guess I would be up for whatever that looked like, but I have to seek that. And it says that here, go seek that. Seek those elevated Vaishnavas, be with them, right? That's scary because I don't know much, and I don't know, my time is so erratic and my schedule is weird. And then yesterday, as I was experiencing, I intentionally closed off the Airbnb so I could have a few hours with no interruption or people. I needed some space to just read. So I didn't have any guests yesterday, and it felt so good to have the house to myself for a moment and to wake up and do our program, talk about Dhruva Maharaj, talk about Dhruva's descendants, to chant 16 rounds uninterrupted, to make prasadam, to sit at the table, to read for hours, to share that with guests. And then I had to work last night, 5 to 8, with a beautiful neighbor. And then I got home and listened to a lecture online about Srimad Bhagavatam and Dhruva Maharaj from another devotee. And I went to bed and I got up at 3, turned that back on, listened while I was getting my shower. Like, this is the life, right? When it affords. So I really only had 3 hours out of, and even the woman that I work for is a Christian. And I just wanted to bring this up before I forget, is it talks about not knowing when and that maybe that was this morning when you were reading from chapter 7. We don't know when we're going to pass away. We don't know when we're going to leave this body. So we prepare. That's all, is prepare, because we're not this body. And yet the woman that I work with is 98 and she's a Christian and she knows the Bible and she lets me read to her and all that, but she never talked. She's 98 and has yet to mention preparing. So I was thinking this morning about, wow, she really doesn't, like, it's just an assumed thing. If you join the church and you pay your dues or whatever over there, you get in, and that's that. So so it's okay to meander in material life and not focus on what happens to the soul at the time of death. And I'm talking to her about it, but it's a concept that as a Methodist, she doesn't really have, there's not a whole lot of information. So it sounds so foreign to her when I talk to her about, and her husband, she was married 72 years. Her husband just passed away in March. They never had a night apart. And so to say to her, well, I asked her to describe to me what the end of her husband's life was like and whether they talked about spirituality and where his soul was going and things like that. And it's just very flat and bland. And so it always makes me glad that I have all these instructions. Now, although I don't follow them all, I know they're here for me, and my gradualness will catch up. So Prabhupada also mentions it's quickly effective. And I feel that. Like I feel when I'm in the Bhagavatam and I'm seriously devoted to the Bhagavatam, I feel effectiveness immediately. Like the threefold miseries of my own mind, of my neighbors, of my of the weather, whatever, that is becomes irrelevant. And all I have to do is walk outside my house. I call it my house, you guys, I'm sorry, it's Prabhupada's house, but my home there. I can go outside and there's so many neighbors that they will come around and I get to hear about their threefold miseries consistently. And I've never shared my threefold miseries with them because I just don't think about. I mean, I'm resolved to the barking dogs and the marijuana floating through the air and the arguing at midnight. Like I'm resolved to it, and we have hurricanes. You've never heard me call and say, "Oh my God, we got to batten down the hatches." Like I just go, "Well, whatever." I'm gonna not be ignorant, but not I don't get all, but they do. So one of my visitors yesterday had to tell me about how her haircut was canceled at the last minute. And she had a 30-minute, she wanted to, she would have if I'd given her space for it. But my job is to, I feel like in that situation, is to model what it's like to be detached from those threefold miseries, to really navigate the conversation and the situation of and bring it to Krishna consciousness, bring it to God consciousness if they're God conscious. With the lady that's 98 and with the neighbors who came over yesterday. One of them brought a big bag of homegrown peppers from the yard. That was nice. It's so beautiful to receive all the gifts that we receive at Prabhupada House. I just want to thank Krishna for all of that. There's always someone at the door with something to share with us. And there's not a sign that says we take anything outside, but we receive a lot of donations of all types, and they show up randomly, and I get a lot of joy out of receiving those and knowing the potency of what that person's experiencing, because those things go on the altar and then get served to the other neighbors. And so we have all our neighborhood gatherings and things that everyone gets for Shalom. So the guy that gave me peppers yesterday, a big bag of them, he said, it was Yvonne and Yvonne and sorry, I was gonna say Jay his name's forgotten. Anyway, he said he's 90 years old and his wife's 92. He said to me yesterday, I hope that she doesn't go before I do, because I don't think I can do the garden as good as she does. And he handed me the peppers, whatever. So he just naturally opens the conversation. And his genuineness and respect came through our little monthly potluck that we do. So it's just funny how it all weaves together. Because for the first few months, I kept putting things in his mailbox and on his front door, and I got no response. Then one day I just knocked on the door and he invited me and showed me the garden. And he says, well, we don't text and we don't email, but you can call. So I can walk over there, but I walk over there and he now walks over to our house, and she does too sometimes. But this morning I dropped off muffins on there. I brought us some muffins, some prasadam, and I walked over and put some hung on his door handle this morning at 4 a.m. And I thought, in this neighborhood you could get shot for that. Well, it was dark. I had my phone light and I'm on his front door, and I'm like, I hope I don't jiggle it. And he comes with it, not knowing it's me. So all of that loving energy comes from reading this, because I mean, I grew up with a decent family and everything, but there was some fear and hesitation and, kind of like a lot of greed and a lot of holding on to things. This is mine. But my grandmother, who was very Christian, was very a fair person, and she showed me a lot about sharing and looking for God in everything, and whatever we have, give away. So she, I had that down the street. She lived down the street from us. That was a gift that I had that to go to get away from, because my family was a little different from that, as y'all have heard. So Srimad Bhagavatam, read every chapter, every word. That's a quote. And then this word, samatam satam, confusing Sanskrit word, but that's the unanimous vote. That's the unanimous, all the sages agree. is not up for discussion. So the ultimate conclusion, that if you're devoted to Krishna, then that's what this book is for, learning to be devoted to Krishna. And so when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, we learn how to be devoted to Krishna. And that's why it got written this way, so that we could learn that. And then everyone who has any kind of spiritual training that's exceeded and become some sort of rishi or sage or benevolent being would agree with that. And that makes it special, because it's not like Prabhupada just said it or David said it. It's 100% vote, and everybody raised their hand and said aye when all the sages convened. I mean, so it's the most perfect thing that there is. So we're all glad we have a set, right? So uncontested is the word I was trying to think of. Uncontested. There wasn't three guys in the back that said we need to think about this some more. It was like, absolutely. Very famous and transcendental is what Dhruva is. He's very famous and he's very transcendental. So we want to know about these famous people, these famous personalities from all the time periods. And we, when we read about them, learn about them, share discussions about them, it's as good as any devotion we be practicing directly with Krishna. It's like Prabhupada, the pure devotee to Krishna is bona fide, tantamount to, and then so is Dhruva. So we have all these personalities that we can feel attracted to and hear from. And Prabhupada says in these 10 verses, like you can, both qualify. So it's not just, well, I want to get to Canto 10, or this is Dhruva, he's nice and everything. No, it's the same. So we can read and you know, Prabhupada's Leela is going to be discussed for millennia in other universes too. So his stories are going to be just the same as, well, someone will be reading them one day, a long time from now, that wasn't as lucky as us, who lived and know people who know him and have videos of him and so forth. However, that information is travels through time in the universe too, that other groups will sit here in future millennia, maybe future Kali Yugas, and read about Prabhupada. I was thinking about that yesterday and I got really excited. I don't know how that's all going to work, but there's going to be this pastime that he just gave us in this way of expanding Krishna consciousness, so that people will gather and talk about this man.
It's described Srila Vyasadeva. He's in the Himalayas at a place called Bhadari Ashram, and he's compiling the next edition of Bhagavatam.
That was our last verse,
Yeah.
the Bhadari Ashram.
Yeah.
And that's where they all are. So that's where Dhruva went when he was ready to leave his body. He goes there. And he's surrounded by all the sages. And remember how we talked about there was no envy or finger point. It's like it's Dhruva's time, and they're doing their duty there. Yeah. So that is that. I didn't know quite how it was going to happen, but I was like, this is wild. We're in one of the Leelas. I mean, it's pretty cool, right? Like, I don't know about you guys, but I was like, it just felt like we're so close to something so transcendental. And Dhruva's famous because he remember when he was doing his austerities in the forest. This was way a long time ago. One-legged meditation, eating one berry every 12 days. The whole earth turned into a windstorm and shook, and the whole demigods, everybody was like, what's going on? It was so powerful that everybody knows. So they've all been watching and observing and being part of this pastime too. Did you want to ask something before?
Is it open for that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So where it talks about one should not receive remuneration, I similarly had some people visit my home yesterday. I was cooking up a storm, and I even knocked on and a couple of missionaries, right? And they didn't want to come in, but they wanted to talk. And I'm like, okay. I started asking questions. And one of the things I asked was, like, tell me your story of how you came to God. And they were the cutest pair, because one was like talkative and told me about everything. He told me about his wife and his cat and like everything. And the other guy is like, blah, 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 you know, verse blah 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 blah. You know, he's very like, we need to get back on track.
Yeah.
So they worked well together. But anyway,
they carried what each other lacked.
Mhm. The one gentleman began to tell me that when he was young in his 20s, he was always attracted to something, and he would go to different churches when invited and things like that, and he'd always find a problem. And there's one story that was very prominent for him that had to do with money.
Hmm.
And so,
A Bible story, or
no, like his story
Okay.
of like being at a church, and he was very attracted to the people were very nice, and they were like taking him on a tour or something, and he got to see how the donations were handled.
yeah.
And he was like, this is not
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
And so anyway, I'm just thinking to myself here how many institutions I've seen where there's sense gratification going on with the money that hardworking people or whatever in good faith are giving. And it's going not towards the glorification of God and continuing that, but more towards like a sense gratification of a few. And very clearly here, it's like absolutely not.
He brings that up, yeah. He brings it up a lot. Probably.
So I appreciated that. And then I have another thing, which I guess is a question which has to do with being twice born. I've heard of initiation in different regards. I guess I've never heard of it being described that way. I'm kind of curious if there's more detail somewhere about that. And then I'm also curious about in that purport, it said something very specifically about man. And so anytime I read that, I'm like, are we talking literally about man or are we talking about human? Right? Like, is it anybody
Man, yeah. In
or is
general,
it
or is it
male? And I don't know the answer to that, but my brain went down a series of things thinking about are there stories of women becoming liberated and moving on? And I don't know. I haven't heard one, maybe.
Well, I don't know that the Bhagavatam well enough to know that answer to that, but I would assume Draupadi was. I don't know if she.
I mean, right in this Dhruva Maharaj.
Oh, he's
Dhruva
not.
Maharaj's guru was his mother, um, Suniti.
Mhm.
Is that her name? Suniti?
Suniti.
Yeah. And so and Prabhupada writes, she was his guru on the same level of as Narada Muni.
Mm.
And it's all one. At the same time, Narada Muni was like the Diksha guru, and his mother was the Martin Pradarshak guru. So right in this pastime, there's that. Yeah, I mean, if you want like female pure devotees, well, you have Srimati Radharani and all the gopis.
Mhm.
Chapter 8 of Canto 1 is theirs by Queen Kunti. Prabhupada gives many classes on that. And Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sri Advaita Acharya, member of the Panchatattva, he's known as Sita Pati. His identity is the husband of Sita, Sita Thakurani. Actually, her appearance day is on the calendar. So of course, like in one sense, we don't distinguish spiritual beings, and that was the theme of your talk, and here that it's not about, hey, we need to be this. You're too old. You're too young. Dhruva Maharaj was 5 years old, like that.
Yeah.
It's not about age. It's not about gender. It's not about birth in a particular family. But as far as like female examples of pure devotion, it's profusely present there. Twice born refers to the essence of initiation. Srila Prabhupada said, well, he references Sanatana Goswami's verse, Kanchana Tamyati Kasam Diksha Vidanena. And Tata Diksha Vidanena Dvijatvam means twice born. The Jayate, it's a transformational process. Prabhupada says that his real initiation was in 1922 when he met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and he dedicated his life to his mission. And then the formal initiation took place 11 years later, in 1933. And now the formal initiation, that's also transcendental. It's transcendental, transformational, when done according to the guidelines of the Prabhupada, according to Srila Prabhupada. And so that's, so the first birth, in one sense, is nothing special. Happy birthday, it's birthday. In one sense, like, there's nothing special there. The cats and the dogs, they all have birthdays. There's nothing special there. Now, we can make our birthday special if we use it in the twice born way. So because that other species, they don't get to be twice born. They don't get to dedicate their lives to the path of Dhruva Maharaj, to the path of pure devotional service. So if we do that, then our birth becomes special. Otherwise, it's just cats and dogs stuff. And so now, so that's the essence. Now, if we get more into some formalities, sometimes twice, like the Brahman, that's like the second initiation. You're planning to take the second initiation. And that's like that's the Brahminical initiation. That's the formalities of it. And you're planning to get the first that's called Harinam initiation. Second initiation is called Brahminical, like that. And sometimes the second initiation is called the twice born. But the real twice born is when we transform our consciousness by dedicating our lives to the mission of the bona fide spiritual master. Does that respond to your question?
Yes, and then what's the distinction of a Brahmin who's a Vaishnava?
Okay, yeah, well, these are, so we read those like 10 verses, and like there's entire courses just
I know.
like, one wonderful reading.
But Prabhupada took 10 verses to say you need to read it. Like,
yeah.
And so we could have just read one of those.
Yeah.
But they were like, look, I don't know. For me, they were inseparable. But yeah.
They go together, and Prabhupada has just
another way to say it. Let me say it another way. Let me try another angle. Are you guys listening?
again and again. Prabhupada says again and again, all the answers to your questions are in his books. So, okay, so there's Brahman. Let's call it in the formal social sense. There's the four social categories: Sudra. Prabhupada references that, and it's Vaishya and Kshatriya and Brahmin. So the Brahmin is like kind of the intellectual, spiritual leader. But someone can be like Dhruva Maharaj, he's in the body of a Kshatriya, but he's our spiritual leader. Okay, and there's Haridas Thakur is in the body of a Muslim who's like below a Sudra, meat eaters. He's our Naman, he's the example, chanting holy name. So it's not dependent on it. But now, if we unpack it a bit more, Brahman means one who is realized in Brahman, in spiritual life. One who's realized in spiritual life. And the idea is that one comes through the Varnas and then perhaps over many lifetimes and then becomes a Brahmin, and they're realized in Brahman, but they're not Vaishnavas. They might be Pandits, and they're realized in the impersonal aspect of Brahman. And then from there, they come to yogi, super soul realization, and from there, they devote themselves to Bhagavan Sri Krishna, and then the Brahman becomes a Vaishnav, and that whole thing can take like many, many lifetimes. And so there's a text in the Bhagavatam which very much relates to this discussion about initiation. Kiratu Nandra Pulinda Pokasha Bira Shubhaya Anakashadaya Yanage Papa Yadapashaya Shujanti Tasmaya Papa Vishnu Vedama. So the beginning of the verse, and so the Bhagavatam, like spoken 5,000 years ago, it describes different races, different tribes. It describes the Greeks, the Turks, the Slavics, the Europeans and Americans. It doesn't say Americans, but most Americans are from the European stock, and they're the Africans and the Mongolians, that's what they said. And like all these tribes, that's us, they're kind of off the charts on the low side. They're not even like, they're not a Sudra yet. Right? And Shukadeva Goswami says, and they can all become pure Vaishnavas above the Brahmins by faithfully, humbly serving Shujante Tasmai Prabhavishnave Namah, the devotee, the pure devotee of Vishnu, the pure devotee of Krishna. Then all these tribes, and Shukadeva Goswami said, and even those from races lower than that, they can all become completely pure Vaishnavas by serving a pure Vaishnava and accepting them as their spiritual master. So that's where we focus. That's where we focus. And so a Vaishnava, a true Vaishnava, is automatically a Brahmin and has all Brahminical qualities, though a Brahmin is not necessarily a Vaishnava. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I was thinking of when we were reading chapter 10 about the Krishna, I'm this.
Yeah.
And he's this may be offbeat, but this is what came to mind.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's the Rakshasas or some tribe. He's like, he is the head of that tribe, like, or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't.
Yeah, there's a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he says amongst the Daichi demons, I am Prahlad Maharaj.
Yeah.
So, because Prahlad is, as an example, he's from the Rakshasa family. Okay, but he's our most exalted Vaishnava and a great soul. And so it's not intrinsically about. At one point, Krishna says amongst rishis, I'm Usana, and they're named for Sukacharya, who's the priest of the demons. But he has some special qualities. So he's a Vibhuti incarnation, Sukacharya, that is empowered by Krishna. Yeah.
Okay. I think I want to just read this Bhagavad Gita 9:22, just because I'm feeling it, and then I think that I'll be done. This is just the translation for 9:20. Those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. And the last sentence of that purport, the Lord helps the devotee to achieve Krishna conscious by yoga. And when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down or miserable conditioned life. That to me, I don't know, sometimes it doesn't make sense on paper, but something, when something bubbles up like that in japa, I usually take it pretty seriously. And I'm going to leave with that kind of focus on, well, I'm not there in that last sentence for fully realizing Krishna consciousness, but I want to be. I have desire to be. And yeah, I could do it today in a minute, in a moment, if I like. I obviously don't like. And then Dhruva didn't like it sometimes either. Like there were times with the yakshas we know about, and we know when he was a kid, he had envy and he went to the forest. We don't have to go to the forest. We can go wherever we are. We can just be there. Reminded of there's some kids on Instagram. Sometimes when I'm posting my stuff, I see a lot of devotional stuff on my feed, and there are small children doing amazing things that it's pretty awesome to watch. It's almost like seeing little Dhruva, they're leading a kirtan at 4 years old or reciting the entire Bhagavad Gita in a way that doesn't look contrived and that they get some of them are leading entire, and I'm not talking about Indian kids either. I'm talking about American kids. Just some kids are naturally falling into Krishna conscious at a very young age because of their past life or their parents or whatever it is. So it may seem a little stretched out from my perspective of my lifetime with my parents, but I see that, we can look at Saraswati, Danielle and George's daughter, that sometimes it's not that unusual for a child to have extreme devotion and practice like an adult and go into it quickly. Even if, naturally as a child, he said Dhruva didn't want to play with toys and things, but Dhruva naturally went in and took instruction from his mother, his first guru, and then went in the woods and took instruction from Narada Muni, and it was driven by envy and desire to have material things or a kingdom. And then one of the reasons that I think this story is so um, potent is because it's not a perfect story. It's not a pastime that, I mean, he went because of childish behavior, but then he demonstrated what we can do. And then when he got off track, his team of leaders and teachers brought him back on. And that's what, we have the opportunity for that. We have instructors and lots of guides. And so I don't know, I guess I'll close with just trying to focus on what I can glean from Dhruva's pastime, that so that, I mean, what I guess I don't want my path to be as bumpy and up and down and sway so much. And so I can have some sway, but really I don't have to. And so just going back to what I experienced yesterday of having, multiple hours, whatever, from 4 a.m. to almost 4 p.m. of just being in devotional service. It's rare that I get even that much, and it's not only half a day. And yet I can see the potency of it. And then this morning I felt back in the snare, like, and so I was chanting and going, well, there's nothing I can do. I have to ask for guidance, and I have to rely on Krishna speaking and guiding me in my words. And if I want more devotion, then I'm going to have to practice more devotion. I'm going to have to chant more, and that's the solution. It's not a mental thing. And so I trust that Krishna has my back because of the practice that I've done for this decade. And then I guess and hope it grows so that I don't have to feel so in it alone sometimes, and wondering if I can carry that load. Like, it is an immense responsibility to be a devotee, and not that I need to carry it around like a heavy ball and chain, but it feels like that someday when I know that someone knocks on our door or gives me a 10-minute conversation about the soul and their wife dying, or I'm with a 98-year woman who could die any moment, and that I always take that seriously. And yet I don't feel like I have the potency some days to do the jobs that Prabhupada gives me out there, that house in that neighborhood. I don't feel like I'm equipped. And so I get the equipment by leading you guys in the morning for morning devotional program, because I have an audience of willing, faithful devotees that ask questions and listen. And then I'm committed to that. And then coming here once a month doesn't seem like much, but it's enough to not let me go too far off or skip a chapter or put it down for a minute, right? Because I don't want to let Prabhupada down in this opportunity that I've been given here. So potency of Dhruva is potent stuff. So if anybody, Anna, do you have anything you want to say before we close up, or Rukmini, or yeah, you got some more?
So those gentlemen who visited me, they were showing me pamphlets and events and all this sort of thing. And I said, that's real nice. I'm sure it's very nice, but I prefer that we've been talking about God here in person with you. And I said, I'm not going to go to these things, but I'll gladly talk to you. I'm enjoying this conversation. So similarly, I'm just really grateful. I told them, I said, in my experience, anytime I go to a church, I'm sure there's places that are different, but I just see that it's very much people who are caring about like socializing and keeping up with the Joneses and all this sort of thing. And I don't see them actually in discussion about God. We're doing that here. And when I get invited to people's homes where that's the focus, that's where I want to be. And I'm just really grateful to be here.
Yeah, thank you for allowing your home to be the stage for those times, because look at the people that attend because they're connected to you, and they get to be in that and see what that feels like, what that looks like, take that in, because it is quite a contrast when you go into any other kind of church situation.
And that boisterous man that was talking about, before they left, he said, well, our companions are in the car, like 5 people with him or something. He said, they warned us. They said, she's real nice and she'll talk to you. And I was like, you're right. And so you put it in your notes, like, you come here, we're going to talk about God. You go stay for a while.
Mhm.
It was interesting that before they left, I thanked them. I said, you guys have provided me with so many resources, such a good conversation. Let me give you something. I said, I have a book for you, right? And I go inside to get them some Bhagavad Gitas. And the man that said that was like kind of, is he started to say something. I couldn't even repeat what he said because he was beating all the way around the bush. I said, now, I don't understand anything you said to me. Tell me straightly what you mean. He's like, no, ma'am, I can't take a book from you. Like, I'm not going to take it, right? And anyway, in that moment, I felt a little sting. And I said, I respect your decision for yourself 100%. I understand. And I'm going to go get it anyway. And I'll just show it to you. And you don't have to take it. Right. And came back. And the other man, he said, I have one of those.
The other man. You focus on that other man. Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, very nice woman gave it to me.
Probably got chewed out back in the car.
You're a Hare Krishna, right? And I was like, well, and he's like, yeah, I took it because I wanted to be able to talk to her. So I was like, yeah, you read it, come talk to me about it. So anyway, Hare Krishna.
A few years ago, two nice young Mormon and Mormon fellows knocked on the door. And a few minutes later, we were doing Hare Krishna Kirtan together. They were participating. So, again, lots of sweet stories about different visitors from different denominations. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for these purports, these books, these devotees. Thank you for sharing Dhruva Maharaj story with me today, the 3 of you and the 4 of you with me online. Thank you for reading with us, and I hope it empowers us. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Dhruva Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna with me. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Laksmipriya. Hari Tom. Hare Krishna Rukmini, Hari Bol.